There's been a lot of talk lately about analog horror being dead, being over. My cat even clearly has something to say. Hello. Oh. Hi, Walter. Do you feel strongly about the McKinney Family Home videos? You watched them with me, didn't you? Didn't you? They were scary. They weren't appropriate. You're only a year old. It's too scary for a little baby like you. There's been a lot of talk about analog horror being dead, being over, being a genre of internet horror that we're leaving in the past. And I'm here to tell you, I have put a sermon together to tell you that that's just not true. Hello, my name is glitchwitch.jpg. This is Walter. And I guess we're both here to talk to you about the McKinney Family Home videos. I typically cover internet horror like analog and digital horror, as well as creepypastas and survival horror video games as well. Analog horror really is one of my favorite things to talk about, and it's something that I think has evolved past the technical definition of analog horror in recent years. Hello, yes. Yes, he's so excited to be up this high. I think a lot of people don't like the term. They think it's overplayed. They think it's overdone. Some things that are considered analog horror, don't use analog technology. And I personally think internet horror is a safe word to just use in general. But the series that I'm talking about today is analog horror at its core. I described this series after watching it as the best hot dog I've ever had, in that all of the elements that make up like stereotypical analog horror, found footage, religion, VCR OS mono font, knocking, spooky faces, it's all here, but it is done so well. It is executed so perfectly that it is just a pinnacle of what makes analog horror. And I think having a series like this come out now proves that there is a staying power to, the true definition of analog horror. And I think that is really, in its essence, just a true love of found footage. This is a very successful found footage series. Obviously, I'm going to get into it in a second. I hadn't heard about the McKinney Family Home videos until one of my viewers commented on my Silent Hill 2 video that I posted last week. And their name is at SoCalledPunk323. So I want to thank you so much for telling me about this, because first of all, I love when y'all give me suggestions, because there's a whole wide world out there that I have no clue about. And second of all, oh my god, this was a good one. Like, you know what you're talking about. So, I try to stay on the pulse of internet horror, but I'm one girl. This isn't my full-time job. So things are going to slip through. I've realized that Reddit is actually a really good place to find new analog horror series, so I'm trying to be on there more. But when I started watching this, I realized that I think the reason that it's kind of blown up quickly over the past month or so is because Rob Gavigan, the creator of Greylock, another incredible analog horror series that I also think is capital A, capital H analog horror, he watched it and reacted to it. So I love to see that. I love seeing prominent figures within internet horror support smaller, newer series. We see that happen a lot, so I'm so happy that he covered this, because that may be how my viewer saw it. I'm not sure. Maybe my viewer is just cooler than all of us and found it organically. I want to say I have not watched Rob's video on McKinney Family Home videos. I know that a few other people like Wowman and Soupy have covered this. I have not watched anyone's analysis, because the nature of this series is very vague, and I don't want my interpretations clouded. The second after I edit this and upload it, I will be watching those videos, because I'm curious. I love to see what other people think. So, what we're going to do here today is I am going to give you a quick synopsis of the videos as they've been uploaded in that order, because it is not chronological. The series is not presented chronologically. And I will say, I'm not going to get super detailed because I want you to go watch it. I'm going to link the channel down below. Go watch this. Pause. I don't matter. You don't know me. I'm just some girl. Go watch the series. It's under an hour, I think. If it's over an hour, it's barely over an hour. And then come back and we can have a discussion. So I'm going to quickly rip through it just so we have like touch points to look back on. And then I'm going to go into what I think is going on and what I think is happening and just the things that I love about it. So again, please go watch it because the nature of this series is that it's kind of hard to let plot summarize. It's very visual and it's very vague. So my plot descriptions just aren't going to be as effective as actually watching it because so much of the genius of this series is presented visually in a way that I cannot describe to you. So, without further ado, let's fire up the VHS player and let's watch some home videos. So, the first video uploaded to this channel is called Movin' 1991. And in this video, we meet what we assume was the titular McKinney family, the father, who we later will learn his name is Dwayne. So I'm just going to refer to him as Dwayne, even though we don't know that yet. And Dwayne is recording a video of the new house that he and his wife Jessica and their 3 daughters have just moved into. And he is recording it with the intention to send to his mother. And he's just talking about how they're excited to be in a new place and, you know, kind of like the growing pains of moving into a new house. And, you know, he seems to be very close to his mother. His children are currently staying with her. And there's little nuggets of, you know, this is a horror series that appear in this initial video. There's some weird stuff with the house. There's a creepy basement with stuff that the previous tenants left behind. The previous tenants left behind a photograph of their wedding, which Dwayne thinks is kind of weird. And he wants to contact the realtor so that they can, you know, have that, get that back to the original tenants. And things like a window is knocked out. You know, there's no doorbell. Just kind of nothing crazy. He at one point refers to, you know, that they've been going through a lot, so the change is good. And then he's interrupted by a phone call. And when it cuts to this phone call, we leave the POV of Dwayne filming, and we cut back to a kind of distorted image of the wedding photo from the basement. And this phone call, I would say, is the most important element of this initial episode as far as the trajectory of the series goes. And I wasn't really aware of that when I watched it the first time. So in this phone call, we find out that Dwayne is speaking to someone from a local church. He and his family attended some sort of service or something recently because his mother had suggested they go to this specific church. And Dwayne says that him and his wife aren't really spiritual, but he wanted to please his mother, and also I think they wanted a sense of community because, you know, they're new in town. They don't know anyone. So in this conversation, he mentions that his mother grew up very religious because of his mother, and she had very specific rules, but she's gotten better. Clearly had an interesting childhood with his mother because of the religion, but they seem to be okay now. Like, his kids are spending time with her. He's recording a video for her. So clearly they've worked through this, but obviously there's a red flag of she recommended this church and they went. So that's the first video. Next video is called Bible Study 1996. So you can see we are jumping in the timeline here. And this opens with of a woman at a farm. I assume this is Jessica, Dwayne's wife. And then we cut to some footage of like younger people, I think on Halloween, kind of walking through town, walking through a cemetery. And throughout this, we get intercuts of missing person signs. We don't have names for any of these women, but they're all women. And all of the missing women have cross tattoos on their wrist. This is the one where I was like, oh, okay, this is some old school analog horror shit. And I love that I say old school, like analog horror wasn't invented in like 2017, at least as far as the internet goes. There's an argument that like analog horror was born with found footage. Right. These missing poster signs, they keep getting more and more off. First one, normal. The woman's face is like freaky to me, even though it's normal. But the next one says that her eyes are missing. One says that she's wearing shame. And honestly, at this point, I'm hooked, right? And there is what many might consider a cheap jump scare towards the end of this. I'm just going to show this sequence because it really, I wanted to keep watching after this. This is just very, I think some people might really dislike this kind of thing within analog horror, or this is why they don't like analog horror. Personally, this is like it for me. This is like peak. I really enjoyed this. I'm just going to play this clip because I can't explain it. I can't do it justice. So that was the ending of Bible Study 1996. I'm sold at this point. I want to know what the hell's going on, right? Third grade graduation, 1994. I think this is a really cool one. It's very atmospheric in its filming. And I feel like this one I really understood just how talented the creators of this are visually. Like they know cinematography, they know what looks good. And this feels very... This one's very bright and warm feeling, almost similar to the way that I feel about Dr. Nowhere's Boiled One series, which I've covered before. If you can make warmth frightening, you're very talented at horror. And I think this video conveys that. And we're just walking through school, you know, various school things. Again, this is why I can't really explain it. You just need to watch this series. But eventually we have a phone that rings and the text alludes to don't pick up the phone, the devil will answer, and then it cuts to like what looks like somewhere outside the school, and there is a deep voice reciting a psalm and a child screaming, and then it just cuts back to the school. So clearly something's going on here, and it ends saying I can't ever go home, and you know why. So something's going on here. At this point, I don't really know who is the point of view for the writing. Next, we have Grandma's House 1995. And Grandma's House 1995 was like the second, like, oh baby, this is made for Glitch Witch. I just love it. This one favors static shots over found footage, but it's beautiful. The editing, like the coloring and stuff is just, it's my jam. This feels very, the thing that I like overall about this series, I believe that it's set in like Virginia. Y'all don't know, I live in the South. I'm not originally from the South, but I've lived here almost a decade at this point. And I live in Georgia, and Virginia and Georgia are very different Souths. This is mountain, you know, I live in like coastal, swamp, Spanish Moss, South, McKinney Family Home videos, Virginia, that's mountain people. And while it's a different kind of like Southern Gothic, anytime that I can feel that feeling of Southern Gothic, I'm hooked because I think it's a very underrepresented form of horror, and especially in analog horror. I think we get so many series that are set in the Midwest or like, you know, like the Northeast. So I love to see one set in the South, even if I know some of my Southern folks may not think Virginia is the South. Virginia can be the South. Not all elements of Virginia are the South. My cat is eating a tag, excuse me. Grandma's House 1995, I think, captures this Southern Gothic vibe very well. The thing that I love about the South, I'm originally from Detroit, like Metro Detroit, Michigan. So I grew up around a lot of urban decay. The thing that I love about the South is you get a lot of like natural decay. You get nature reclaiming man-made structures. Like when I drive up and down the highways to get to like Atlanta, to get to like Charleston or Charlotte or whatever, or down in Florida, I see a lot of, barns falling apart, this, that, and I love that. It's such a different aesthetic and vibe than urban decay. Urban decay is very sad to me. The natural, like, earth taking over what is it's, we're the invasive species here, I think is very beautiful, and that's the vibe that I get from specifically this video. And you see this house is just a mess, it's falling apart, and this one is very creepy to me. Like, the words and the sound design in this one is very effective, and essentially it's just going through this house, and who I believe is the grandma is the point of view, at least for this one. And at the end, I think one of the most powerful statements in the entire series, it says, and then it cuts to screaming. And that just stuck with me. And I'm very into the idea, my cat's eating another tag. And I'm someone who I'm very interested in like house-based horror. And I don't mean a haunted house, I mean like things like Scarier and House of Leaves, where like the house is the horror. So I love this idea that like she is in the house, she is part of the house is part of her. Like, this is my body, this is my blood. You put so much into a structure that you live in for so long, especially something that's maybe like a multi-generational farmhouse or something like that. I just think that's interesting. I don't even know if that's the intention. That was just something that struck me. Christy baptism 1993, which is just a striking piece of found footage. This is some classic Blair Witch Project shit. You get a car that pulls off, goes into the woods, creepy ass house in the middle of the woods. I can't tell if it's supposed to be a house or a church. Either way, it's abandoned, it's creepy. Kudos to the people that made this for actually going in this creepy ass house in the middle of the woods. And I love that I'm noticing that I'm not really explaining the plot because there's not much to explain. I'm just kind of talking about what I like about each video, which I guess works. In this one we have, I'm not sure, and that's the thing. I think I will say I struggle with who the point of view is for a lot of these. And maybe I'm just stupid. Like, maybe Rob Gavigan's like, I know everything about this, and he might, because he's smarter about this stuff than I am. But we have someone going into this abandoned building. They're uncomfortable, the vibes are off, and eventually, who I assume is Christy, feels the presence of someone else, and then she said she has been made pure, and she has met God. But then we hear a child screaming for their mother. And at the end of this, we see really scrawly text that says Dwayne something. I can't read it. I think that Dwayne is watching, Dwayne is something. And remember, Dwayne is our father figure in this series. So the thing technically that I love about this video is we have a lot of found footage, but then it will cut to a still of what we've seen in the found footage, and you know that text is going to come up. But those cuts to stills almost feel like jump scares, like they cut and it breaks the tension. And I'm a tension girl. Tension in horror is the most effective to me. It's more effective to me than a jump scare. But when you carry out the tension long enough and then break it, I'm okay with that kind of jump scare. And I think that this series does that really well. The jump scares don't feel cheap to me. We have Scarier 1995. This is the only double year we have. Grandma is 1995 and Scarier is 1995. And in this one we have, who I think is the McKinneys and their friends, setting up a haunted house within their house or their garage or something. And this one's just fun. It feels the most like the first video, where it's a lot more casual. Then of course it devolves by the end, and our text comes up, and we get some really beautiful kind of artsy shots of like creepy dolls and creepy faces and stuff. And I kind of like this one. I feel like it may annoy people that like the normal haunted house goes on a little bit too long, but I like that because then when it actually got like real creepy, It took me by surprise because I almost thought it was going to be a fake out one where nothing weird happened. At this point, I'm still struggling with POV. I mean, I'm not, because I've watched it twice and I've figured out my theory, but I'm saying in the moment when I was watching it originally, I'm still like, who is this? What's going on? I will say this series is very much that picture if you're a Drag Race girly of Trinity the Tuck Taylor saying, girl, I don't know what the fuck she's saying, but I'm living.
I don't know what the fuck she's saying, but girl, I am living.
That's a lot of internet horror, but this is certainly one of those. Because I don't know what the fuck she's saying, but I am living. And then we have Jessica Homecoming 1998. And if you remember, Jessica is the mother of McKinney's. This one, I really enjoy. It's another just great found footage. It reminds me a lot of the Home Invader Gemini Home Entertainment episode, if you're familiar with Gemini Home Entertainment. I assume you are if you're watching this video. And this one deals with the whoever is causing the text, whoever is that's their point of view, is pretty much just harping on Dwayne. I assume Dwayne is the one filming. Just tell them they're gonna go to hell. Can you forgive yourself? All that kind of stuff. And this person seemingly is breaking into the house from the original one, and we hear who I assume is Jessica scream. And then at the end we just see Jessica walking. And again, at this point, like, I don't know what it means. I kind of have a running theory that I'm obviously going to get to. But even without there being an overarching plot, like, the vibes are immaculate and it is creepy. So then we have Blank, which is the only one that doesn't have a year. And this one is a little different, where it's someone interviewing who appears to be, someone is interviewing another person, and the person being interviewed appears to be a child. And the child's a little resistant, but they start drawing answers to the person being interviewed, which this is another classic tenet of internet horror and horror in general. Have the kid do the creepy drawing, you know what I mean? I don't know how I feel about that trope. I'm a little over it, but this subverts it a little, I will say. Because the kid starts by drawing normal shit, like, where they live and their friends. And then when it gets to the creepy drawing, they are not childish creepy drawings. They are terrifying. So they show what their mother looks like, and she's sobbing. They show Dwayne, who looks like an evil thing. They show themselves, which is terrifying. It's like this elongated, almost like, it looks like a horse skull to me or something. I'm not sure. And then it shows kind of like a creepy, saintly looking figure, and they say that's grandma. And then at the end they say, like, Mom will make everything better. And I don't know, the assumption is that this is one of the McKinney kids, but then I wonder why they call their dad Dwayne. And I'll get into a theory about that later. But this one, I don't know, like, it feels like the odd one out, and it clearly is the odd one out. So I'm not mad about it, but this one confused me a little. At this point, I'm like, I know what's happening. I know what's happening. I figured it out. I was on a second rewatch. I was like, well, no, what happened was I watched all of them up to Blank. And then I had to go to bed. So then the next day I said to my husband, this is good. We need to watch this. So then I was like, I watched everything except for the last two. So I'm excited. We're rewatching them. And as I'm rewatching, I'm like, I know what this is about. I know what this is about. I'm a video essayist. I know what this is about. And then we got to the last two videos, and I was like, well, there goes my theory. Second last video is Family Vacation 1990. So this is chronologically the earliest in the entire series. And in this one, Dwayne and his family are on vacation somewhere. It looks almost like I don't know, it's like a colonial vibes, like there's like colonial animatronics, or the monster or villain or whatever you want to call it, I'm going to call it a deity based on what I think now, starts talking to Dwayne. It jumps between, being welcome, you can come back, I miss you, blah, 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 this, that, to like threatening. And the threats are, essentially alluding to cut off his family. Like, You need to come back. Well, and essentially, I think that this deity, which I assume is from his mother's religion that he grew up with, is just trying to convince and threaten him to return to the religion, and I think it is getting inside his mind. So this would lead me to believe that most of the point of view text is this deity, but I don't quite subscribe to that, which I'll get to in the analysis more. So that's the deal with this one. It's kind of almost like the prequel to the whole thing. And the last video is Dwayne's, I almost fell there, I got excited. Dwayne's hunting trip 1997, which fully just took a shotgun and shot my theory through the heart. And this one, it's creepy. What a finale. This one, it takes place in the snow. Dwayne is filming, he's walking around, he comes across a snow angel that has blood in it, and like, y'all, I am easy to please, and that pleases me. He goes into like a shed, into a house, and at this point, we're discovering it's Grandma's house. The text says, the Holy Mother approaches, Lilith is coming. So this is the most concrete theology we've gotten so far. So at this point, I don't know if the Holy Mother and Lilith are two separate entities. Theologically, from a Christian perspective, I would consider the Holy Mother to be Mary, the Mother of God. And Lilith was Adam's first wife, who was created as his equal, but she defied him, and then they made Eve instead because she was a submissive little bitch that made us all get periods. Thanks, Queen. This is opening up like, oh, we have a deity maybe here. Like, do they worship Lilith? Or is Lilith an enemy? Is Mary, do they worship, are they like Catholic offshoots that worship Mary more than they worship Jesus? I don't know. But it is clearly Judeo-Christian in origin. We have that confirmed, which, can you tell as I sit with my crosses on my actual Baptist pulpit with my Cloisters Apocalypse facsimile that delights me. I moved from my pulpit. I got too excited. Essentially, the god of this religion finally confronts Dwayne pretty blatantly and says, you left your faith. I'm punishing you for leaving your faith. Your mother was loyal to me, but your atonement for leaving me is killing your family. And Dwayne killed his 3 children, is essentially what happened. I don't believe he killed Jessica, though. And the wildest part of this entire series, we see God. Call up the Thomas Jefferson Miku binder. I've met God, she's black. Not in this instance. I don't know what God is. God is a human figure with some sort of like shroud over its face. You can see like a jaw. Ooh, this excited me. Ooh, I got this is what it's about, people. I got so excited. So God confronts Dwayne, essentially being like, you paid your debt, homie, you're good. You better stay. Like, you better be following my ass from now on. It's essentially a boss reprimanding you, but instead of, like, getting rid of your PTO, he made you kill your children. That's some Old Testament shit, for sure. And at the very end, when we last see God, he said, now leave this place and never return, because if you do, I will devour you. And I think that means he doesn't want him mourning his children. Like, clearly, he's keeping the bodies at Grandma's house or whatever. And he's like, you move on. I need you to move on, because if you dwell on this, it's done. Which is scary. That's very scary. And I love that God was visualized. I think that's always a ballsy ass thing to do. I know when eventually Wendigoon covers this, he's gonna shit his pants. So dirty atheists like me, we're fine. I just think it's neat. When it ends finally, the blue screen says goodbye, Dwayne. So that is the McKinney Family Home videos. Again, I hope you watched it, because me explaining it is not going to give you the same experience that watching it is. If you just listened to me explain it and didn't watch it, go watch it before we talk about theories so you know what the hell I'm talking about. So let's get into some theories. Now, I have 2. One I'm going to call my original theory, and one I'm going to call the canon theory. And when I say canon theory, don't trust me that this is canon. I say canon, I don't mean literally canon, I mean what makes more sense with what has actually been presented. My original theory is very, in the ether, very metaphorical, and it's just involves things that I've done a lot of research on, so of course I was biased towards those concepts. So I'm going to start with that one because I don't necessarily think it's true at all. I think there's elements of it that you could interpret, but my initial theory, until we got to like those last two videos, because they essentially shoot that dead, is I thought that there was nothing supernatural about this. Dwayne grew up in an abusive, very insular Christian denomination that was borderline a cult in the way that it functioned. Not literally a cult in the way that, like, you know, not like literally a cult like Jonestown or in the People's Temple. Almost more like a Waco situation where, and not Waco the event, but the Branch Davidians, where you have a decently conventional Christian belief, but they put way too much attention and favor onto like the pastor, which in that case was David Koresh. In this case, I thought Dwayne was that person. I didn't think at first that Dwayne was the husband in the family. I thought that Dwayne was maybe a pastor. And so I thought that the mother told the McKinney family to start going to this church. It was her way of getting them sucked back into this, very fervent denomination. And I essentially thought that Dwayne was a pastor that started abusing the McKinney daughters. And because they are young children, they viewed him as this monstrous figure with this deep voice, the devil, because he was hurting them. And I thought, essentially, because he was worried that they were going to talk, he killed them off one by one, and Jessica was appeased because she thought that they were staying at the grandma's house. That was my theory, but I don't think that's what's happening here. Could it be metaphorical for abuses that occur within religious institutions? Absolutely. I think that's a possibility. I think that's a read for this for sure. Do I think that's the implicit plot? Absolutely not. But I still wanted to share it because I have done a lot of research on the abuse of power that happens within religious institutions, specifically Catholicism. In college, I did my final project, my dissertation on the Pennsylvania grand jury report that came out in 2018. So I'm just very tuned to pick those things up because I've done so much research on it. So that's definitely my personal bias shining through. But I think it's always an important conversation to have. So that's why I still wanted to include it. But let me move on to what I think is a more viable theory. I'm grasping here. I don't quite know, but this is what I think is happening, okay? And I still have questions that might be answered in the future. I don't know, and I'm probably going to go watch Rob Gavin's video after this and be like, oh my god, of course. The believable theory to me, Dwayne was raised in a fringe religious group by his mother. He escaped when he left when he met Jessica. And I kind of think that the children might be Jessica's biological children and his stepchildren. And the only reason I say that is because in blank, the child refers to mommy as mommy, grandma as grandma, but Dwayne is Dwayne instead of daddy. But I don't know. I could be overthinking that, so I'm not sure. But even so, he clearly cares for these kids, whether they're his biologically or not. He seems to be a very attentive dad. Essentially, chronologically, 1990, the family vacation. On a family vacation, this deity, this god, speaks to Dwayne and tries to convince him to return to the religion, and is kind of threatening, it seems, towards his family specifically, because it seems that his family is what has pulled him away from this religion. He chose Jessica over the religion. I think at this point the entity has, the deity, has entered Dwayne's mind and is maybe not implicitly controlling him yet, but he's getting his little fingers in there, putting ideas in there. And then in 1991, which is move-in, Dwayne's mother convinces them to join a new church, and I don't know if this is out of her trying to convince him that she's normal now. Go to this Southern Baptist church. It's normal. I'm normal now. To trick him and into like complacency, or if it is an actual offshoot of the religion he grew up in. I almost favor the Southern Baptist, like she's trying to trick them into thinking she's a normal Christian now, because like I find it hard to believe that such a fringe religion would have like multiple locations, if that makes sense, but it could be the case, as an alternate universe where this is a more practiced religion or something. I think I can confidently say that this is some sort of bastardized Judeo-Christian religion because of the mention of Holy Mother and Lilith. Those alone make me think it's some sort of weird backwoods, snake preacher craziness, which I love. I love me a tent revival church. That's what I'm trying to channel today. So I love it. Very into that. But so essentially, as the time goes on, chronologically, Dwayne, the deity, gains more control of Dwayne, and he starts picking his children off one by one. He picks one off in Christy's baptism. I don't know if he successfully kills a child in the third grade graduation, because that was one. The third grade graduation is what made me think, or like really affirmed my original theory, because that ends with I'm never going home, and only you know why. And I thought that was like the little girl, her perspective talking to the evil pastor, but I don't think that's the case. And honestly, the text is something I struggle with, because I don't think it's a consistent character. Like, I don't think it's always the deity. It could be, but sometimes it feels like it's one of the children or the grandma or whatever. And essentially, so he keeps killing his children, and I think that grandma's house is her perspective, and it's showing she's struggling with losing her grandchildren, but she also wants to appease her religion. Like, she is a fervent believer of her religion, so I think it's that internal struggle of the sacrifices that are being made, and I think she feels guilty for not being enough for the God, because it's that line that I love, this is my body, this is my blood. It wasn't enough, it was never enough, saying that me alone, my faith alone, was not enough to appease him. And she's not, like, challenging the God with that, she's just mourning her situation. This read makes that video very compelling to me. And I think that at this point, Dwayne is like placating Jess by being like, the kids are at mom's, and I don't know, she's not questioning it, I guess, but I think she eventually questions it and like dips and tries to figure out what's going on. I'm not 100% on that though. The only reason I say that is because one of the videos is called Jessica's Homecoming, so that leads me to believe that she left and then came back. So then, Dwayne's hunting trip, all the children are dead, he confronts God, more like God confronts him, and he's essentially released from the mind control because he has completed his penance. He has done what was needed to do, and God even says her mother's ashamed of you, and I believe that. I think she's embarrassed that it had to go this far. I think she's embarrassed that he left the church, and I also think she is upset that she's lost her grandchildren. I think, chronologically, the final one is Jessica's Homecoming, and I think that's just them like reuniting and her realizing what he's done. She finally understands what he's done. So that to me is what I think the McKinney Family Home videos are about. Now, I would love to hear your theories in the comments. This is absolutely just theorizing. I think this is one of those that's just like, it's vague. I think that's intentional. I'm sure that there's multiple reads of this, but I do think that I'm probably picking up some major plot points in that second theory. I'm sure I'm missing things. I still don't know. Like I said, I think my biggest hang-up that I'm curious what y'all think about is who is the text. Is it multiple people? Is it just the God? I think it could just be the God, but I'm not 100% sure. So, if we get more of this, like a second season, we may find out more. I'm not sure. Or it could just end like this, and honestly, it's fine, but, it's good. I am so thankful that I found out about this series. It deserves way more attention than it's getting. They only have like 2.5 6,000 subscribers. It should be way bigger. I think this is just a pinnacle of analog horror. I mean, I love it. I have not been able to stop thinking about it since I watched it. I mean, you know, it's got to be good if I watched it and then rewatched it again 24 hours later, right? Thank you so much for watching. Shout out to the creator of McKinney Family Home videos. You guys rock. You're awesome. I can't wait to see what you do in the future. Please let me know of any analog horror series you want me to cover. Like, please give me suggestions, because had I not gotten a suggestion from So-Called Punk, I wouldn't have covered this or maybe even known about it. Eventually, I'm sure it's going to keep blowing up. I just know that in my heart of hearts. But please, suggest other series like this to me. I'm going to start going through the subreddits a lot more, like the analog horror and the digital horror subreddits, because I think that's a good place to find things. I'm new to Reddit, y'all. I just made a Reddit account like a month ago, so please be gentle with me. But I am Glitchwitch JPEG on Reddit. If you follow me on Reddit, do people follow each other on Reddit? I don't know. I'm also Glitchwitch JPEG on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called. You can follow me there. I basically just post internet horror memes. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the McKinney Family Home videos as much as I did and are as excited about the future of analog horror as I am. Have a nice day. Bye.